1. For context, these occasions have happened over the course of 12 years, and I'm 19 right now with events still ongoing. I believe in ghosts and spirits, but not demons due to me being atheist. When I was 9 years old, and my family had some friends over, including the kids of said friends, so including my younger brother, there were 4 kids in total, we had one of those old plastic swing sets, and as I was playing with my dog, the other kids started freaking out, because the swing was moving on its own. It's evening in the summer and no winds. But every time I looked, the swing was still. At some point, I got fed up and whirled around to look, and the swing was suspended backwards in midair like someone was sitting on it. I wanted to check it out, having no sense of self-preservation, but they dragged me inside with everyone else. They ended up leaving soon after, and I only sometimes see it move every now and then. Next, I was 17. Loitering in the kitchen while my dad was looking for stuff to start dinner, and the microwave above the stove exploded. Nothing was turned on, but the glass shattered outwards, and the handle fell off. My brother was in the living room and also saw it, and we still joke about how the ghost can't operate a microwave. During those 12 years, many items have been moved while others were around, including large tin cans falling over in the pantry. A weird one was when I was at school in 8th grade. I was at lunch, and my friends and I all watched my drink, a glass of lemonade, just up and slide away like someone had grabbed it. Next, what started as a shadow gremlin, a smallish humanoid shadow figure I would see in my room that would either scuttle in front of my bed or perch like a gargoyle on my bedroom chair. It would leave scratches on my legs, rip blankets off my bed, and generally be annoying. I ignored it as it didn't mess with my pet gerbil, and would even perch on my bed in weirder positions to assert dominance. Over the years it has stopped scratching me, but now when I stay up too late, I get empty drink bottles and ramen cups launched at me, and my fan gets knocked over. Even my laptop will stop working if I stay up too late. This mostly happened while I was still in school, but even now I have to dodge the occasional styrofoam cup. So now it's a sleep schedule ghost. I'd feel different things when I go to bed, including a cat kneading at my legs, something big climbing in bed with me, the bed dipping like someone is sitting at the foot of it, and feeling like cats are cuddled up to me. My family has several cats, all of them outdoor cats, as my mum's allergic, and all of them would find a way into my bedroom, including via the vents, or even a hole in the wall where Dad fixed a leak from the bathroom next to my room. I attempted to commune with whatever is pestering me. I was 13 at the time, with a Ouija board made out of the cardboard back of a notebook, and one of my mom's shot glasses. Dumb decision, I know. And the only thing that happened was my drink fell off the table and onto my DIY spirit board. Took that as a no one wants to talk, and Mum sage smudged the house after that stunt. 2. I'll start by saying that I was not a supernatural type person before this, but I'm now fascinated. Before I had lived in a historical home in Oregon called the Holbrook House. I don't remember the spelling, but it was built in 1895, stated on the plaque by the front door. Sometimes had weird vibes, but as humans I know our minds make things up that we think of, so I didn't think too much of anything like objects moving or doors opening. I don't even remember much, as I didn't ever think much of anything because I honestly didn't believe, as I never had a truly unexplainable downright occurrence happen to me at the time. The usual dog barking at nothing, hair standing up stuff. But anyways, nothing really crazy that made me believe, until about 5 weeks ago, and it's been on my mind ever since, and I still think about it to this day. Me and my girlfriend were doing our usual drive around town, wasting time, talking, listening to music, doing whatever, until I start driving to Scarville Hill, a well-known spot for kids our age to go hang out and park our cars up for the viewpoint. It was a Saturday night at around 10 p.m. As we were getting there, I say something along the lines of, "Damn, no one here on a Saturday night, that's crazy." And as we're pulling into the gravel park, we see a pair of pants on the ground. So me and my girlfriend are like WTF. I'm about 12 feet from the pants, and my tires are pretty much lined up with the gravel against the road. I stop and my girl rolls down her window as we begin to look at them. And just then we hear very distinctly, and I mean very, as in there's no doubt in my mind we were hearing things, as we both heard it, "Mommy," from the left side of the middle of the graveyard. If I didn't mention, there is a fence separating the gravel from a very old graveyard. Just as we both hear it, my girlfriend says, "I have a bad feeling, let's go." Not even mentioning the voice we just heard. As my adrenaline kicks in from what this was, I punch the gas to the floor, and we speed out of the spot onto the road, and I asked her if she heard that. She said, "Yeah, I heard Mommy." I say, "Yeah, me too." From the time we heard the voice to when we leave the area, I get this buzzing, almost unexplainable feeling in my body, which could obviously be from shock or adrenaline, but a feeling that I've never felt in my life. My body was buzzing and I felt heavy and my shoulders felt cold, ice cold. I told my girlfriend, who had had experiences her whole life, which I never 100% believed, stories she would tell me, but being her boyfriend, believing her as much as I can, because she's pretty much my other half, and always keeps it the utmost realist with me. And that my entire life just changed as I felt I had experienced something not of this world, only knowing the dimension I live in my whole life. I sat there driving in pretty much silence as she talked so normally and almost unbothered by what had just happened, just thinking about life and death, and how what we both heard and felt in our bodies could have possibly happened in the world I knew, as it had just shown me there's more to it than this bland one dimension I've always known. Since that night, my life has never been the same, and I think regularly about existence as we know it. I now take my girlfriend with me whenever we get the chance to chase my curiosity, going to abandoned houses, graveyards, whatever, just to feed my mind with the infinite curiosity of what lies all around us that we cannot see and is supernatural in general. I want to know what exactly is going on. I'm beside myself on wanting to experience that again, but always find myself searching. Just another note to add. The pants were very small, definitely child-sized, and we have came to the conclusion they had a flower stitching design on them. 3. After a lot of deliberation, I have decided to share my experience here, and see if anyone else has encountered something similar. I will be honest, I have never been a believer in paranormal events, and I have never come across anything in my life before this that could not be logically explained. I'm still trying to find a logical explanation, but I simply don't have one. My best friend currently works at a transitional living facility for young adults, and his hours are never consistent, so we usually end up hanging out late at night. Last week on Wednesday, he came over to my house after his shift ended. Shortly after 2 a.m., we drove to Jack in the Box to get some food, and on the way back we saw something that I still don't understand. We were getting fairly close to my house on what most people would consider a back road. We live in the rural Midwest. They are normal to us. And we're just shooting the shit, talking about some basic music that we were practicing. I remember the conversation completely stopping as I noticed a bright orb of yellow light that was just hovering in the road. I remember just staring at it and thinking of nothing else as I drove right through it. Afterwards, neither of us said anything, and I felt an overwhelming sense of brain fog. My friend is the one that broke the silence and asked me, "Did you see something?" I could tell by his voice that he was just as confused as I was. I told him I saw the ball of light, and he confirmed that he saw the same thing. I don't think I can explain just how strange we felt after we encountered the orb. We got back to my place and just picked at our food without much conversation. Neither of us were afraid or concerned, we both just agreed that we were struggling to come up with words, and we were very tired. It felt similar to that feeling of a long day in the sun, and afterwards being drained of the energy to do anything but rest and sleep. We're both used to staying up at these hours normally, and we usually don't sleep until 5 or 6 in the morning. After that night, nothing else strange has happened. We both felt normal again the next day, and we bounced ideas off each other as to what we saw. The road is surrounded by trees, and there are no houses nearby to where the orb of light was. The only nearby landmarks are a train track that we drove over about 2 miles before we saw it, and a lake that people occasionally walk around a few miles after. There isn't much to do in our town. I tried to think of what the orb logically was, and the best I could come up with was a projection. It was fairly large, about the size of an exercise ball, the big ones that I remember rolling around on as a kid. There was not a stream of light leading to the orb, and there was no residential areas anywhere close. So the projection idea doesn't really have much merit. The yellow color of the orb was vibrant and seemed to be glowing, but it was not blinding, and it was not hard to look at. It didn't seem to be a shade of yellow I would expect from a bulb or a man-made source of light. It appeared to look more like a solid object, but driving through it proved that it was not. Does anyone else have any ideas to what we saw? Or have you encountered anything similar? I'm usually able to come up with satisfactory conclusions when I've seen something I don't understand at first. But this truly has me stumped. I would have written it off as me seeing things if I wouldn't have had my friend with me. I don't believe this to be anything sinister, and we have not felt threatened or afraid of what we saw. I just want to put my curious mind at ease, because I have a tendency to think about things until I have a conclusion that makes sense to me. Thank you for your time. 4. Disclaimer: I don't think I'm special for this. I attribute most of these experiences to childhood imagination. But I felt very haunted as a child. I witnessed shadow people and apparitions regularly. Felt like I was never alone. Had constant nightmares and ended up going to a child psychiatrist when I was 7 because of my constant anxiety. He dismissed my complaints about ghosts as imagination, but I still remember these experiences like they were real and physical. Ghosts, although I don't particularly believe in them, not sure, were as much a part of my childhood as visiting my grandparents or going to recess. It was a part of my life. I started being haunted by the Hat Man when I was about 6 years old. I saw him for the first time passing through my bathroom doorway and going up the stairs. I'll explain. It was nighttime and my parents and younger sister were both upstairs settling in for the night. I needed to use the bathroom, but I was scared of the dark and scared to be alone. I went downstairs by myself to face my fears. But I left the bathroom door open to feel less alone and hear my parents upstairs. The bathroom was at the end of the staircase, and the toilet was right beside the door, like you could open and close the door while sitting on the toilet. I kept the bathroom door open and let the bathroom light go into the dark dining room. I was avoiding looking at the dark as I usually did. But then I just looked up at the doorway because I saw movement. He was 1 to 2 feet away from me. A tall black shadow casually walked past. I saw his legs move like 2 individual legs moving, and felt the mass of his steps but didn't hear footsteps. He took 3 steps, 1 entering the doorway, 1 in the frame of the doorway, 1 exiting the doorway, and then he got onto the first step of the stairs and vanished. He was wearing a hat. I didn't know anything about the Hat Man until I was 21, which was last year. I thought the Hat Man was just a weird, fucked up imaginary friend or something. He just looked like a solid black shadow with a hat and the brim lower than it should be, like where the eyes would be. It was a flat, round but sharp brim, like a CD. He was tall, and the height took up the whole doorway. For whatever reason, that hat just stood out and made him feel like a professional. It's hard to explain. He felt snazzy in a proud way. When I saw other shadow people as a kid, it was like I saw them on accident. Like I glimpsed at someone doing their own thing as I walked in on them, or it was just corner of the eye nonsense. But with the Hat Man, I felt like he knew I saw him. I felt like he was self-aware compared to the other boogeymen my childlike fear of monsters tricked me into seeing. The Hat Man had a personality. He knew I was there, and he knew I could see him. It's so hard to explain. It's like he announced himself the first time I saw him. Like he strutted by and wanted to show himself off. And more scary, I felt like we knew each other. I felt like at the very least he knew me. It was so weird. It was really freaky, to be honest. When I saw him, I basically froze on the toilet and I was too afraid to go back upstairs. Man, I sucked my poop back up, I'm not gonna lie. I felt like he was still on the stairs waiting for me to turn the corner and see him. By the time I got brave enough to run screaming to my parents, I literally just left my pants in the bathroom. I closed my eyes and kept my eyes to my feet for the first half of the stairs. I could not forget his image. There are only 2 encounters with the Hat Man I remember vividly. The first time I saw him, as I just described, and the last time I saw him, which I will describe in a minute. In between these 2 experiences, I remember seeing him in the corner of my eye a few times. Once passing by my bedroom door and peeking in. One time I thought my dad was wearing a hat when he was in the hallway, only to find out he was downstairs, and I immediately thought, that's the shadow with the hat. Once I made the connection. Seeing things in nightmares became a real issue for my parents and myself. I was up all night, woke up screaming, couldn't fall asleep alone, etc. My parents are both atheists, and both heavy skeptics, but dealing with a high-anxiety child had to make things up to calm me down. There is a drawing of my great-grandpa wearing a ye olde day brim hat. To help me with my fear of the Hat Man, they showed me this drawing, and basically told me, maybe it's your grandpa's angel. This drawing has hung up in every house we've lived in, and I've always thought of that shadow figure every time I've seen it. And even though I associated with the Hat Man, even as a kid, that freaky motherfucker was certainly not my grandpa. As I said, I saw shadows frequently. By the time I got a little older and used to these experiences, I would try to look at them and see what they were instead of shielding my eyes. My mom advised me to do this, probably hoping it was some kind of exposure therapy, and I would get over whatever was psychologically going on. By the time I was 9, I would try to catch these apparitions, instead of letting them pass by my peripheral and scare me. I'd look at them. If they stayed after my double take, I would count how long they stayed. The second longest was 5 or 6 seconds, and that was the Hat Man. Fast forward, I'm 10 years old. I'm alone outside on a swing in the front yard. My old house was in the corner of the street. In broad daylight, I saw the Hat Man standing right in front of the stop sign. He was so real that he blacked out parts of the stop sign. He was solid black. I felt scared, but I decided to look at him. He was looking back even though I couldn't see his eyes. I passively started counting, still swinging. But I was out of focus when counting due to being startled. I refused to look away though. For whatever reason, I had this instinct that I wouldn't see him again. That he showed himself for the last time on purpose, before I wouldn't see him again. It was like, bye. And it was super weird because I felt upset about it. I said bye in my head, which doesn't make sense because the dude horrified me. By the 5th or 6th second, he just blipped away. Like he was there, then not. Like he was photoshopped in, then someone clicked delete. Then I stopped seeing shit. My I see ghosts phase ended. I still had nightmares and anxiety and fear of the dark, but I just stopped seeing the bitches. I grew up. I would still look out for ghosts, but didn't see them anymore. Eventually, it wasn't a worry of mine. I do think this whole experience with the Hat Man could have been some sort of complex childhood imaginary friend or boogeyman. I don't know. I've had quite a few psychological issues, and by my late teens experienced hallucinations. It was just a few episodes, not chronic symptoms. So I don't know how well I can trust my experience then. I did not know the Hatman was a phenomenon until I saw a meme a couple years ago. After that, I went into a bit of a rabbit hole of research and am incredibly fascinated. I had absolutely no clue this was a shared experience, and I thought I just had a strange imaginary boogeyman and friend. In my research about the Hatman, I learned that he shows up during emotional turmoil. When I saw him, one of my parents was deathly ill from epilepsy. He went into a coma when I was 8. By the time I was 9, this illness was resolved and he was no longer disabled due to a VNS implant. Another interesting detail is that I began to see a recurring nightmare that took place in that bathroom. The dream was of a woman screaming and crying in the dining room, and her spine and arms stretching, like Incredibles mom animation. I would run into the bathroom to close the door and not see it. But the door would be a screen door, and I would be forced to see it. I could not remember if it was there before or after the first Hatman encounter, but I always related the two. But yeah, I have done a lot of thinking on this experience, and find the phenomenon interesting. I'd like to hear other stories. I'm actually a horror writer. This is not a fictional story, though, and I'm inspired by this experience and want to write a novel about this entity. Likely, having actually experienced the entity, real or not, will give me an advantage. Although the Hatman is spooky, and if I saw him as an adult I'd shit myself, I kinda think he's cool. But sometimes, if I think about him a lot, I get the heebie-jeebies. I'm not really scared of ghosts or anything, just scared of the dark, and like everything else. But I seriously am scared of the Hatman, and would lose my shit if I saw him again. 5. I grew up outside a relatively small town in Texas, and more importantly in a haunted house. Well, to be more accurate, on haunted land, and I'd like to tell a few stories as well as my own experiences. Now, a little background which gives some context to why I say land instead of just house. My childhood home sat about 100 yards, or a big football field, off of the Colorado River, on about 100 acres of land technically owned by the city. It's a public city park that lays outside of the boundaries of the city. Yeah, it's that kind of ass-backwards place, notwithstanding all of the other political bull you'd expect out of a small southern town. Anyway, back to the actually important information. My father is the live-in park ranger for this city. It's not a bad gig, all things considered, though in my opinion he could be paid more for being a maintenance and authority figure that's on call 24 hours a day, 365 a year. This means if someone gets locked out, if a camping site loses power or has problems, or there is a conflict, someone is knocking at our door no matter the hour. It's always been this way since I was about 7 years old, and I'm 29 now. He's a tough old man, almost 55 years old, and not all that inclined to share spooky stories of things he's seen and been told. Though he does believe in ghosts, he'll try to find the rational explanation for why things happen before he caves and admits it was a ghost, even if me and my mother know damn well what it is. Now, I give this background because it's important to note that when things go wrong, he's usually the first person on the scene. This includes the time when we had some jet skis explode while a father-daughter were riding them. They were fine, thank goodness. Alligators roll up on the campsite, personal disagreements, people trying to be sneaky and not pay by showing up after dark, people doing illegal substances or trying to get freaky in the back seat in the rough camping part of the park, and of course, being right on the river, drownings. For some reason, people love to drink and swim, and someone drowns about every 3 years minimum. We're actually due for another drowning. Following the pattern. I don't hope people drown, but the memory of the last ones don't seem to stick as long as they should. Anyway, Dad is usually the first on the scene either to try and help the people or to direct the ambulance and police, and eventually they search for bodies. Most appear after a day. One took 3 days, and Mom said that's the only time she's seen Dad truly disturbed. It's not a fun part of the job, and Dad dreads summer and spring when people start coming out and acting stupid. Please do not drink and swim. And if your kid isn't a strong swimmer, even if they are, please put a flotation of some kind on them if you're swimming in a river or lake. For your sake and everyone else's. So, people drown, sad as it is. That being said, these drownings have led to several spirits that hang around. Our most popular one to be reported is the first man my father helped try and find the body for. He was wearing a white shirt, blue jeans, and was a friendly man by nature. Now, I need you to know I have only seen him once myself after passing. My mother and father have both seen him multiple times, and many campers have seen him. One gentleman who likes to fish was out late. Close to midnight, returned to his car alone, as he'd been all day. He gets his gear in, gets himself, and goes to buckle up after starting his car, only to see the smiling figure of the man in the white shirt and jeans in the passenger seat. He leapt out, and when he turned around saw no one in his car. It's been almost 5 years, and this fisher no longer comes out by himself if he's staying after dark. Other campers have reported seeing a man sitting at a table, white shirt and jeans, who will see them and raise his hand as if to wave to them. People will go to wave back only to realize no one is there. My mother used to work early morning shifts, 3 a.m. to 2 p.m., and she'd see him standing outside of the office on her way to work from time to time. My own experience with him is simple, but spooky. I was sitting in the office with a friend one night talking about 10:30. My parents now live above the office after Hurricane Harvey. Anyway, we were sitting there and I see out the window over my friend's shoulder a figure walk by the window like it was going to walk through the double glass doors of the office. Now I live in a park meant for camping and visiting. However, it's important to note that the park was A, closed due to our sewer system getting redone, and B, it was the middle of the week, and most people don't show up then. It was a man in the white shirt and jeans, and I knew that he was coming to buy something from the office. I was spooked, who wouldn't be, and my friend and I retreated upstairs rapidly. He's never been threatening, and I'm sort of glad the flood didn't take him away. However, even with him on the land, there are worse things that are here. My childhood home, which I must admit I'm sort of still grieving, and grateful I cannot live in again, was destroyed in Hurricane Harvey. It had 2 feet of water in it and emotionally devastated our family. There is something that still lives in that husk now used for storage, and I hate it. Growing up, my bedroom was used during the day by myself and never at night. When I was little, I often had night terrors that had me shrieking for my mother and sleeping on the couch instead. She told me that I often said, "She has no face," when I asked why I was crying at night. By the time I was 9, the couch in the living room was my bed, and my bedroom had a cheap futon. The feeling of being watched, of something standing behind you, was and is overwhelming. I hated it. Even when I slept in the living room, I had to have the door to that room shut, as well as the one next to it. The feeling of being stared at was so strong. We had a door to the garage at one end of the living room, and one doorway to the kitchen. The garage door was open during the day, and there was no tangible door to the kitchen. What I saw in these parts of the house I can't say were human-like, but they at least wanted to be seen as it. They felt wrong, very wrong. Have you ever seen someone walk quickly by an open doorway? My mother and I, and we think my father, but he'll deny it, saw these tall figures blur by, mostly dark but occasionally pale. I hated seeing them. I always had this awful sense of dread and anxiety. A fear they'd not walk by the doorway but walk into the room instead. I think they did, more than once. I used to walk in circles in our living room while on the phone with my now platonic partner. As I'd walk by the couch, I'd feel as if something brushed against or wrapped around my ankle, and it always terrified me. I was always scared to look behind me or under the couch, as a grown woman of 20-something. I hated those things, those moments. They liked to touch my hair and ankles as I tried to sleep. And I'd say it might have been sleep paralysis, except it was only ever after I closed my eyes initially, and falling asleep was an hours-long trial. Mom often experienced seeing them, and hates them too. Since Dad is on call 24/7, there are times he has to go out at night, much to our anxiety. We'd often hear the front door open and shut, or hear his voice, and call out to see what had happened or what was wrong. About half the time he wasn't even home, and for a time we'd write it off that we just heard things, until the dogs started responding to it too. We used to have a lab mastiff mix, who would growl any time the thing moved, and moved closer to my mom like he was defending her. I've seen things dart under curtains or beneath sinks, found drawers open and things knocked over and open that had screw-on tops or push-in tops that no one had touched in months. One time, a mounted deer head from my grandfather came off its hook and cracked me in the head. The nail it was on, unbent and undamaged, but it hurt, I assure you. Anyway, more recently during my current visit home, Mom says that when she goes over to the house, or what used to be our house, she doesn't like going inside anymore. She says that when she takes the dogs out at night for bathroom breaks, she doesn't look in the dark windows. The house and my childhood home share a massive yard. Even if her instincts are telling her to, she's scared that if she does, something will be looking back at her, or feels like something is looking back at her when she does. I have these same feelings. And sometimes, when I'm on doggy duty, the feeling that something is peeking over the 7-foot fence. This post is long, but I'd like to finish it by saying that our new home, above the office, is much more peaceful. Something opened the locked bathroom door the other night while I was visiting my parents, and an entire shelf popped off its rack in the cabinets a few weeks before that. Strange things still happen. But I'll be honest to say that I'm glad it's nothing like at the old home. These aren't the only moments I've had, which range from hearing muffled conversations for hours in the childhood home in the dead of night, when everyone was asleep, to hearing it again at my friend's house for months and months. I've also experienced things at the high school where I teach, so I'm not sure if it's me or my life, but I'll never be persuaded the supernatural isn't real. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 286. And thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button, and share the video with anyone you think might enjoy it. Oh, also, if you'd like to send a story in yourself, you can send that along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. That's kingofthecities@gmail.com. You can find that in the description of this video. And that can be used for any Hellfreezer-related correspondence and not just sending in stories. Right, let's see. We are on Friday. It's the weekend now. Woo, 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 woo. Right, so tomorrow night we will try and have a stream of some kind. I'm not sure what, but I will start a stream, and hopefully I'm rested enough to do it. Update is just basically health-wise, mostly okay, just kind of tired a lot, really. But that'll pass eventually. But we're doing things, we're getting work done, we're doing all the important things we need to do, so that's fine. Okay, now, there's no special shout-outs, I don't believe, today, but we will move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And that is something from a video game you wish you had in real life. Like, some characters in video games seem to just have infinite storage and it doesn't weigh them down. I think that's delightful. This might just be me. In some video games you get jetpacks, and that's a totally fine and acceptable thing for a character to have. That would also be fun. Let me know what you think. Leave your ideas in a comment below. And I'm going to head off for now. Okay. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.